Hi, my name's Pat Evans. I'm here with the Grand Rapids Business Journal at Fifth Third Ballpark. We're here for a live chat with Lew Chamberlin, the owner, CEO, and president of the Whitecaps. Um, we're just here talking about the ins and outs of running a minor league baseball team, and I think we're going to learn a lot today. So, Lew, we'll take it to you.
Alrighty.
There we go.
Happy to be here.
Great. All right, so you're 20 years in now. How did it get started? I mean, what kind of gave you the hey, I should start a minor league baseball team or be involved in one?
Well, everything starts out, I think, at the stage whether you're a baseball fan or not. And I've been a baseball fan all my life. I've loved baseball. I've been a huge Tiger fan since I was born and raised here in Grand Rapids. So I've followed baseball all my life, and after several different career moves, I found myself at a crossroads in 1985, 1986, and I began to explore the idea of minor league baseball here in West Michigan, wondering why it was not here when it was thriving in other communities, and taking a look at whether it really represented a business opportunity. And that's where in those endeavors, that's where I met up with my partner Denny Baxter, and we went to work on bringing minor league baseball here to West Michigan. Little did we realize it was going to take us 8 years to get it done, but so
Right.
be it. Anything worth doing is worth waiting.
Right. So in your search for it, why was it not in West Michigan already?
Well, I think principally the reason that we didn't have professional baseball was for lack of a facility. We had a terrific market, and I think we had everything that we needed to support minor league baseball, but we didn't have a facility. And Major League Baseball had some pretty specific rules and regulations about the kind of facility that you had to have, the amenities that you had to have, and there was nothing here in our community that came close to meeting those criteria. So our number one job when we started out was to find a way to get a facility built, and
Right.
that's principally what took us the 8 years.
Okay. So it kind of it's stadium first, then team, kind of.
Well, I mean, you just kind of defined the classic issue that we struggled with for 8 years, which I've always called the chicken and the egg problem, which is it was real easy to to go to the community and say, hey, we need you to publicly fund a baseball stadium for us, and then they'd look us in the eye and they'd say, well, why should we fund a baseball stadium for you if you can't guarantee that you're going to have a team to play? Well, fine, okay. So then we would go to investors and others, and they would say to us, why should we invest in a baseball team if there's no clear indication that you're ever going to have a stadium built and that it's ever going to happen here? So we struggled with that chicken and egg for 8 years, looking for public funding, trying to get our feet wet in baseball to give ourselves some credibility, so that people would realize that, yes, we really could deliver a franchise when the time came. And ultimately, as we all know, what we decided to do was to finance our own stadium.
Right.
And once we made up that decision to finance our own stadium, then things began to move a lot quicker.
Okay. How did you choose, Comstock Park rather than say downtown Grand Rapids like Lansing did, or any, like that?
Well, I mean, over that 8-year period, we looked at any number of sites. I think we came within sort of a signature of having a stadium deal done in Lamar Park in Wyoming. But then all of a sudden at the last minute that fell apart politically. So all of that work, goes by the board, and we started working on perhaps a site down in Byron Township. And we worked on that site for a while. Through this whole process, we had become aware of this piece of property up here, but we also talked to people at the city to look at the possibility of locating a stadium downtown. What we found there was that really they had other priorities, and they were understandable. Their priority was on an arena and on a convention center, and those were their first two top priorities. And I understood that. In fact, I had been part of the Grand Vision process, and I knew that was what the downtown priority was. So we knew that if we were going to get a baseball stadium, anytime in our lifetimes, or perhaps the lifetimes of our children, we had to look at another way of doing it, perhaps another place. So we came back to this piece of property, which we really thought had a lot to recommend it. It has this great location right on the river. It has great in and out because we've got this exit right off of 131 here. And we went to work on this piece of property, and fortunately it worked out.
Okay. So then, can you take us through the process of bringing the team here? It was from Madison, right? Was that the team that it came from? Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that, how does a team say, okay, it's time to move?
Well, essentially what we did is we purchased that ball club that was operating in Madison. And the reason that the Madison Ball Club was available was related to the stadium criteria that we talked about earlier. They had a team that was affiliated with the Oakland A's that was playing in Madison, but they were playing essentially in really not much more than a high school stadium, and not a very good one at that. So, and at that time, the city of Madison, nor any person or party in Madison, was willing to make the investment in improving that facility or building a new facility. So the owner of the ball club in Madison could see the handwriting on the wall that he was not going to be able to meet these stadium criteria, and one way or the other, he was going to lose his franchise, so he decided to sell it. So we purchased that franchise in 1993, and we moved it here where we had begun stadium construction in 1993, and our first season was started on April 12th, 1994.
Okay. I guess, can you take us through a little bit of the stadium criteria? You said theirs was like a high school stadium. This is clearly not.
Well, really it got pretty specific, and I can't give it all to you rote from memory,
Right.
But they had criteria for a specific number of parking places. They had criteria for a specific level of lighting that you needed to have. They had criteria for number of seats that you had to have and type of seats that you had to have. They had criteria for number of bathrooms that you had to have. They had criteria for the type of concession stands, the number and type of concession stands that you had. So they had all kinds of criteria that were really intended to create a quality experience, not only for the ball players on the field, but also for the fans as well.
Okay. The Whitecaps are a Class A team. Sometimes it seems like Grand Rapids is bigger than some teams that have some cities that have AAA.
Right.
What goes into determining where a team stays or is in a class?
Well, principally, it's a one-word answer: geography.
Okay.
That really has a lot to do with it. When we went out looking for a team that fit our market, we were somewhat limited by geography. The single A leagues, you look for leagues that are operating in your general vicinity, and in our case, the league that was operating nearest to West Michigan was the Midwest League, which is a full season single A league, and that's where we concentrated our attention. Everybody always asks me this question about can we go higher?
Right.
What about AA? What about AAA? Well, I think those are valid questions, and I never say never because we always look at different possibilities. I think the level of play that I find most exciting is Double A baseball, which is where all the prospects
Right.
are. Triple A baseball now has become a little bit more of a sort of a place where you keep your reserves, if you know what I mean. The real prospects are at Double A, but geography is a real challenge for us there,
Right.
because the closest league that has Double A baseball is in the Eastern League. I think what really is going to be required if we were to make a move, which we're always open to, would be if minor league baseball were to completely realign, and it would come at the behest of Major League Baseball. If Major League Baseball decided that they wanted to see sort of a different geographic arrangement to the way Double A, Triple A, Single A were laid out, then I think you might see some movement. But until then, and I think it's important to say, we're very happy with the level of play here and the product that we have on the field, both in terms of baseball and in terms of entertainment and food and everything else. What I have found these days is you're not so much defined these days by whether you're single A, double A, or triple A. You're defined by the size of your market and the type of your facility.
Okay.
And so really, I think we compete with any AAA market or facility out there.
Right. I mean, you win plenty of championships, and
Yeah,
you
we
bring
won
in
5 of them so far. Yeah.
and you bring in a good crowd. It seems like the Whitecaps are always at the top of the attendance list in the Midwest League, at least whenever I look at it.
Right. We've been very well supported, and I think that's an important reason for our success, and why here we are 20 years into it. We've gotten terrific support from the community, and it's the kind of thing. When Denny and I started out, we really wanted this franchise and this team to become part of the fabric of the community. We really wanted to become a tradition in West Michigan, and now 20 years later, I can see that we've achieved that, at least partially. You have to keep working to continue to achieve your goals, but we're starting to see kids who came here with their parents in 1994. They're coming back with their kids.
Wow.
And it's that kind of family cycle and that kind of traditional feeling that we were looking for.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move into a little bit of the organizational. I guess we were talking about organization, but roster type things. You said when the Whitecaps moved from Madison, it was affiliated with the A's.
Yeah.
But you stayed with the A's for a while. But eventually we switched to the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
How does that happen? How are the affiliations? How do they work?
Well, the affiliations are a matter of contract. There's a master agreement between Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball, and that agreement says that we will provide affiliations for every one of approximately 160 minor league teams, and that basically is saying that every major league team is going to have a short season A team, two full season A teams, a double A team, and a triple A team, and they will guarantee that number of affiliations. And then it becomes like a big game of musical chairs, because there are all those contracts available, and you have to find a partner. Well, when we bought Madison, they were in the middle of a 2-year player development contract with the Oakland A's. So we had to fulfill that contract when we came over here. So the first year that we played here, 1994, we were affiliated with the Oakland A's. And then that contract expired, and we had an opportunity to take a look around and decide, what did we want to make any moves? And it's the type of thing where the major league club can make a move if it wants to, and the minor league club can make a move if it wants to. And we looked. The logical choice for us is obviously the Tigers.
Right.
So we looked at the state of the Tiger farm system, and unfortunately, at that point in time, There wasn't much investment in their farm system. They weren't doing a lot in terms of player development, and we kind of decided, you know what, we're going to stay with Oakland for another 2 years. So we signed a contract with Oakland, and we stayed with them for the '95 and '96 season. In fact, this is what made the switch really difficult because we won the championship, the Midwest League Championship, in 1996 with the Oakland A's. But at the same time, the Tigers were under new ownership. They were making investments in their farm system. They were really committing to their farm system, and we felt it was time to make the move. It was a little bit difficult to tell Sandy Alderson and Billy Beane that, thanks for the championship, but we're going to go somewhere else. That wasn't much fun because I had a lot of respect for the Oakland A's. They were a terrific organization, and they still are, and their ownership as well at that time. So, but that's when we made the move. We made the move, and we signed a 4-year agreement with the Tigers, and we have continued to re-up those deals. I think we're signed with the Tigers through 2018 now. It has been a perfect marriage. They've been very supportive of what we want to do, both baseball-wise and in the community. And I couldn't ask for a better partner than Dave Dombrowski and the Tigers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Chicago Cubs fan personally, and so I've seen the Cubs go a lot of different ways. They've been with Lansing, Peoria, who they would, I don't even know now, but they've, in just the past 10 years, they've been with 3 different teams. So it can be one or the other. You can choose to play around, or you can.
You can. I mean, for us, I think stability is important, and because of the geographic proximity and sort of the natural mutual marketing advantages of being involved with the Tigers, I wouldn't see why we'd ever want to change.
Right, and it does make it easier to be with the hometown fans, right?
Well, and as personally for me as a fan, and I'm sure for all these other folks, it's a lot more fun to see these players here develop. They play here for a year or sometimes longer, and then they move up the system, and ultimately we see them play at Comerica Park. Right. The Andy Dirks, the Alex Avilas, the Don Kellys, Ramon Santiago, Omar Infante, all of these guys, they played here. And it's a lot more fun for fans here to see them make it as Tigers in playing in Comerica Park than it is, for instance, to follow players who eventually wind up playing for the Oakland A's 1,000 miles away.
Right, and then it's better than, say, to have Omar Infante come back like he did last Thursday.
Right, I mean, there's nothing like a major league rehab. In minor league baseball, I remember a couple of years ago we had Maglio here,
right?
And we always laugh that that was the best Monday night we'll ever have. And I keep telling Dave Dombrowski that I have this new promotion in mind. It's called Rehab Mondays, and he doesn't think it's that funny. But seriously, I mean, major league rehabs are great for us because it gives the fans a chance to see a Kenny Rogers or a Maglio or a Curtis Granderson or an Omar Infante up close and personal. Right. It's really a cool thing.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about the roster. I know you don't manage the day-to-day lineups at all, but with this trade that happened last night, how does not being able to, you don't control the roster, so how does that affect the day-to-day playing?
Well, it can. All of our ball players are employed by the Detroit Tigers. They are under contract to the Detroit Tigers. So all of the player moves, player development moves, those decisions are made by the Detroit Tigers, by Dave Dombrowski and Dave Owens and their player development people. And so the only influence that we have as an organization or that I have as an owner is good old-fashioned screaming and begging, which we've become pretty good at. And the Tigers, they're sensitive to us. They want to have good ball clubs here because they know that they're building Tiger fans right here, and they don't want to look bad in front of basically their home fans. But the player moves are made by the Tigers. Um, I don't have any control other than if things are going badly, I can call Dave or one of the player development folks and say, boy, I'd really like some help here, and usually, if they can, they will. Um, but to answer your question more directly about the trades, how do those trades affect us? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. A good example is the trade that brought the reliever Ravis, was that his name?
Yep.
Yeah, over from Houston. Well, that involved one of our players. Our starting left fielder, Danry Vasquez, was traded to Houston for the reliever Veras. So all of a sudden, he's got to pack his bag and move to Quad City, Iowa, which is where Houston's single A franchise is. And all of a sudden, we're looking for a new left fielder. And I'm calling Detroit saying,
Right.
What can you do for us? So these trades can have a direct effect when prospects like Danry are traded. And we were talking a little bit earlier. It was in this particular case, it was kind of difficult for Danry because he just made an arrangement for his girlfriend from Venezuela. She was arriving here in Grand Rapids on the day he was traded, and they had made all kinds of living arrangements and all those kinds of things, and it all went up in smoke. He's
Right.
got to do it all over again in Quad Cities, Iowa.
That brings me to another point. I don't know how true this is, but I've heard things where you have a lot of young players, 18, 19.
Yeah.
If they get stationed with host families, is that something that happens? Or?
Yeah. Almost all of our players live with host families, and we started that, right from the get-go. We started that in 1994. We've always had a host family program. When we were first getting started 20 years ago, we put out the word that we needed host families for these players to live with, and we got a huge response. And we really we have some of the same folks still doing it. We've never had a problem with finding host families, and it works really well. It works well for the Tigers love it because they know that these kids are in good places and they're well supported. I think the ball players have really come to love it, and in fact, we've had examples where we've had some kids, some high draft choices that got a huge signing bonus, a 7-figure signing bonus. Well, they'll arrive in town and decide that they're going to rent their own apartment because they can afford it and because they want to have the freedom. But more often than not, about halfway through the season, after they've seen all of the benefits of living with the host family, the home cooked meals, the connection with family, by mid-season they usually dump their apartments and move in with the host family. It's really worked well.
Okay, cool. Back to the rosters, because this question has popped in my head. Maybe I don't pay enough attention, but it seems like a lot of young prospects do spend full seasons in Single A.
Oh, yeah.
Cameron Maben is the first one off the top of my head.
Yep.
Why did they, especially if they're having a really good year, why did they spend a full season at Single A?
Well, it all has to do with player development, and I think one of the things that you need to realize about baseball as opposed to some other sports. These players, when they come here, they really have the physical skills. Many of them have the physical skills to play Major League Baseball right away. You see some amazing plays out
Right.
here. But what they don't have the ability to do is to do it on a consistent basis, day in, day out, for 140 games. Most of these kids have either, whether they're coming out of high school or coming out of college, they played maybe 50 games at the most. They've never been asked to play that many ball games in a season, and they really have to develop the skill of being focused and being in the game every night, every minute for 140 games. And when you see mistakes out here at Fifth Third Ballpark, it probably has more to do with a lapse of concentration than it does a lack of physical skill. So what minor league baseball was designed to do, and what it's all about, is teaching these kids how to play a full baseball season. And when they're assigned here, unless they just absolutely overwhelm the league, they're going to stay here for the whole year because they need that experience. And typically, major league organizations, and certainly the Tigers, are careful not to rush these kids. Every once in a while, you'll have somebody like Devin Travis, who was our starting second baseman at the beginning of the year. Well, he just ate this league alive. He was leading the league in almost every category, offensive and defensive.
Wow.
He was batting .350, and okay, in that situation, after the All-Star break, at the halfway point, he deserved a promotion,
Right.
and that's what he got. Obviously, we were sad to see him go,
Right.
and because he's a quality young man as well. But sometimes there are kids that are just, they obviously are so advanced that they're ready to move on. But for the most part, you know what? A full season at Single A is probably pretty important for their development.
Right. Okay. And we talked a little bit about how big stars coming back for rehab can affect attendance and stuff. How does a stud prospect like Cameron Maben, I know that was a few years ago, but that's the one that I remember the most. How does that affect attendance?
Well, I think it does have an impact on attendance. I think certainly people are interested when you get a first round draft pick. People are interested in seeing that kid. I would say the impact on our attendance is more diffused throughout the season.
Okay.
When you have a rehab,
Right.
bang, it's that one night, and all of a sudden you sell out in half an hour, and that kind of thing. With prospects, number one draft choices, it really does affect our overall attendance because people are interested in seeing these kids, but it's more on a diffused basis over the course of the season.
Okay. How about weather? I mean, today we're rainy, but it should clear up by the first pitch. But
yeah, it looks like it's stopping and getting lighter already.
Right. How does rain or even really hot weather affect attendance and even field upkeep?
Well, we're now in our 20th year, and I'm finally coming to accept the fact that there's nothing I can do about the weather.
That's a good realization.
Right. I've always known it, but I've never accepted it. I mean, weather is the one big thing that can make or break you.
Right.
I mean, it can really make a difference in your business performance because if you get rained out on a couple of big Saturday nights in July and August, wham!
Right.
I mean, there goes your year. So we really are weather dependent. Rain is the thing that threatens us the most. But if it gets, beastly hot, or in April and May, terribly cold, well, obviously that has an effect on attendance as well. By and large here, over the 20 years, we've done pretty well. I mean, I can't tell you the number of rainouts we've averaged, but I'll bet you it's no more than 3 a year.
Wow.
So we've been lucky, and I'll tell you one thing that we have here that other clubs in the Midwest League don't have, and that's Lake Michigan, because it has a tendency to break up storms
Right.
and to move them around that we've really been able to take advantage of over the years. Still, rain is our biggest enemy.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. As with any baseball team.
Yep.
Unless you live in a dome or play in a dome.
We have that's a good point, because if you don't have a field that drains well,
Right.
Even if it stops raining, you still might be able to play.
Right.
And here we have a really well designed field that has a terrific drainage system. We have a top flight groundskeeper. Michael Huey does a great job, and so we can take a lot of rain here. And if it stops, we can take that tarp off, and we can get we can get that water off of that field really fast, and that allows us to save some games that other ball clubs might not be able
Right.
to do.
Okay. All right. Well, we're here at the 30-minute mark. I've got a few more questions. I've kind of been dominating the questions because I'm really interested in this conversation. So if you're watching this and have a question, please submit it. And while we finish up here with the last few questions from me, what are the basic financials of running a team? Like how much does it take to open for a day, and then how much do the fans bring in? Just real basic.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, our revenues come from three sources. It comes from tickets, concessions, and advertising revenue. I mean, that's basically where our revenue comes from. Our expense side is pretty obvious as well. I mean, we have the cost of doing business. We have basic cost of sales issues. We have overhead. And then we have labor. And the trick always has been, we've never really focused on how many people do you need to draw in order to make money, because that can vary. It depends on ticket per caps, which change during the season based on promotion. It depends on concession per caps, which change depending on whether you have picnics or not, et cetera, et cetera. So our goal has always been, whenever we open the gates, to make just a little bit more money than we spend. And in 20 years, I can say that we've been fortunate enough that we've been successfully profitable every year.
Nice. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah, it's good. What we like to say is that it's going to keep us. It's going to keep this business stable, and it's going to keep it here operating successfully for another 20, 30 years.
Right. Okay. What was what's been your favorite moment in Whitecaps history? There's probably a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always tough. I had to answer this question the other night. We've had 5 championships,
right,
and they're all, every one of them's different, and they're all great. We've had lots of different moments here that have been incredible, but I guess because of that 8-year process we went to make it happen, that day when Denny and I were standing on the field and we watched our kids throw out that first pitch in 1994, that was probably one of the most special moments.
Oh, that is a good moment. How about a favorite player?
Favorite player? Denny pointed out when we were talking about this the other day that you have a tendency, when you're close to it, when you're seeing these kids every day, you wind up rooting for the really nice kids, the kids with great personalities, and not so much the ones that have a whole lot of talent and so on and so forth. And one of my favorites, far and away, is Don Kelly.
Okay.
And and not because he has all the skill in the world, because he's not the most skilled player, but because of his personality. He is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Also, his work ethic. He has an incredible work ethic, and the fact that he's still playing for the Tigers at this point that's a product of how hard he works at it. He doesn't go to spring training every year with a guaranteed lock on making the team.
Right.
He has to make it through effort every year, and I just really love Donnie Kelly. I think he's a good kid.
Okay. Back to the I guess, bottom line, or whatever you want to call it. How does having concerts and the Winter Beer Festival and all the extra events that end up taking place on the property here, how much does that help keep everything running?
It helps immensely. And one of the things that we, probably about 8 years ago, we came to the conclusion that, we had been doing really well, but because we were a seasonal facility, and because we wanted to be able to continue to reinvest here in this facility, if you look at this stadium now and you compare it to what it looked like in 1994, you wouldn't even recognize it. And that's because being privately financed, we are able to make decisions and reinvest in it in ways that other ball clubs are not able to do that. And so if we want to continue to reinvest in this ballpark and keep it fresh and new, we had to develop new revenue streams, and we made the decision that we really did need to look at trying to get more out of our seasonal facility than we had been previously. And so we started looking at concerts and activities in the parking lot, the Winter Beer Festival. We now have the Pepsi Stadium Club, which is a year-round facility where we can have business meetings and wedding receptions and small concerts and that kind of thing. So we really have made a conscious effort to try and derive more revenue from non-baseball events.
Okay. Makes sense, and seems to also be working out. Now let's go over to the Grand Rapids Griffins. They had a fantastic season this year.
Yeah.
You guys partnered with them. How do you feel about having the hockey team, almost coming up to living up to you guys and winning a championship?
Well, I mean, it was long overdue. They've come close once or twice before, and there's nothing quite like winning a championship. And so I salute them. I know how important it is, to the morale of the organization to know that you're competing and competing well. And let's face it, in hockey, in AHL hockey, the same as in Midwest League baseball, it is about player development, and we all get that.
Right.
But you want to win too.
Oh, yeah.
And so I congratulate them. I think it's great that they finally got that Turner Cup, and we had it out here at the ballpark, and it was fun to do.
Okay, and with two solid minor league teams, is there ever any chance of Grand Rapids getting a major league team, or is that pretty far-fetched being in between Detroit and Chicago?
I don't really know the economics of major league sports, whether you're talking the NBA or the NHL or Major League Baseball, are pretty daunting.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I never say never, because the way this community grows and the way it thrives, you never know what might happen down the road. But I would say for now, I think we're providing good, solid professional sports here in West Michigan, and I think that's probably what we're going to have for a while.
Right. Okay, I think this is going to be my last question, unless I get a couple more user submitted. But this season you guys didn't qualify for the playoffs in the first half. If you don't know, minor league baseball, or Midwest League at least, is split into halves.
Right.
You're within striking distance. What do you look for in the second half of this season?
I look for us to get on a little bit of a roll. And you know what? That's what happened a lot when we've won championships and made playoffs in the past. Often it has to do with getting on a hot streak, getting a winning streak going. And we've won 3 in a row. We're going for 4 in a row. Starting to feel a little energy. This is a team that can make the playoffs. We're 3 games out of that last playoff spot right now, and if we can get a little roll going, we can make it.
Okay. Oops, I guess I do have one more. Hold on.
All right. We're back.
Yeah. I'm a pretty big fan of regular baseball, just straight up baseball.
Oh, yeah.
But, of course, you got to keep little kids entertained and the families, and so there's a lot of, in-between innings stuff. Why do that, and do you think it takes away from the game at all? Does it help it?
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. The truth is I like the baseball, too. And one of the things I try and point out to people is that the baseball's still here.
Right.
Every inning is played just the way it's always played. But we do have these between inning entertainments, and we have all kinds of goofy food stuff and mascots and stuff for the kids. And that's part of who we are, because we are at the very core, we are inexpensive family entertainment. And I think that's what provides us our foothold in the community. And frankly, when you come down to it, you're starting to see Major League ball clubs do a little bit of the kind of stuff that minor league teams are doing as well. And it's not that there's not a place for just a straight, unpromotional baseball game. And in fact, that's what we do in the playoffs. But I think all of the sort of entertaining stuff that we do it's part of the overall picture, along with the food and the facility, and it's part of what makes Whitecaps baseball Whitecaps baseball.
Okay. And then what's your favorite part about baseball? And then even what's your favorite part about your job?
Well, my interest in baseball was always sort of experiential. In other words, I remember going to Tiger Stadium when I was 8 years old with my father and my grandfather, and walking down that dark tunnel and seeing that bright green field. That was back in the day of more day games. But so, I can tell you what it felt like to be at the '68 World Series, and I can tell you what it felt like to be at the '84 World Series. But I can't tell you who hit what or what the scores were. For me, it's just the experience of being there. And so that's what it is for me here too. I can't always remember, which player played on which club and who had the best record and so on and so forth. But what I remember and what I always remember is the feeling that I get from being at a baseball game. That's what counts for me, and that's what makes my job so great. I like all the business stuff. I love ensuring that this is a successful business and that we are making wise decisions and creating a stable, profitable business platform. But more than anything, I love the fact that I can be involved in baseball, and I can be looking out at what I'm looking at right now, minus the rain.
Right. That's true. We were talking about, one of my favorite places to be is Wrigley Field, and I just feel at home there. And
Exactly.
I said it when we were sitting here, is just on an empty stadium and an empty field. It's so peaceful.
It is.
It's beautiful. Well, there it is. The sun's trying to shine through the clouds, and hopefully they get their pitches out today at 7 o'clock. So come on down to Fifth Third Ballpark and watch the Whitecaps hopefully win. Until next time, my name's Pat Evans. Have a nice day.